Welcome to the Save Our Sperrins campaign, Voices from the Frontline. I'm Morella Fife, your host and a member of the Save Our Sperrins team. At the heart of this struggle are the voices of local people, farmers, families and young campaigners whose homes, work and families are rooted in this place. Their voices are joined by supporters from across the world, standing in solidarity, from professors to artists, from those offering vast expertise to those whose presence alone is an act of support. All have stood with us. In this series, we share stories of resistance, resilience, and hopes from those determined to protect these mountains, their land, their rivers, the very air they breathe, and their community. Let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Save Our Sperrins podcast. This is a slightly different episode, a moment for us to pause, to take stock, and to look back over what has been a very full 2025, a year when things shifted for our campaign. Here in Ireland, when you go to primary school first, as a little one, you get to play in the small children's playground and do not get moved up into the big girls' playground until you've grown up a little. Well, this year's a campaign. One might say we grew up and moved into the big girls' playground. We lifted our game, and the effects of that have been dramatic, spreading far and wide. In our local community here in Northern Ireland, people have started to really get the importance of what we're up to, and consequently, we have moved from being thought of as environmental protesters to being understood and seen as an environmental necessity. Our local community have begun to realise that they are the very last line of protection for the precious elements needed to support life on Earth. There is a dawning realisation that it is each person's individual responsibility to protect the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the soil that grows our food. For if not us, then who is left? We also had some significant positive developments, milestones you might say, and these small but important victories confirm that our approach is working. So we're going to walk through the year month by month and remind ourselves and each other just how much happened. January 2025. The year began exactly where many of us expected it would at the public inquiry. We attended and participated in the first 3 days, from the 13th to the 15th of January, and then very suddenly it was suspended. The reason was fundamental. The Department for Infrastructure had not carried out a transboundary consultation with the Republic of Ireland, something that is required when a project of this scale risks impacts across borders. That moment mattered. It exposed a serious procedural failure and reminded us why scrutiny exists in the first place. Also in January, we were invited by Changemakers Donegal to speak at a climate justice event in Letterkenny, a reminder that what's happening in the Sperrins is connected to wider struggles across borders and communities. February 2025. In February, we spoke at a Friends of the Earth Scotland webinar titled Rethinking Resources. It was part of a much bigger conversation about extraction, consumption, and the idea that endless growth is either inevitable or acceptable. Once again, the Sperrins became part of a wider story. March 2025. March brought something quieter but deeply powerful. Poet Cherry Smith, poet in residence, Greenwich University, staged One Mountain Sold at Cregan Centre and donated the proceeds to Save Our Sperrins. It was a fantastic evening, full to the brim with community, humour, pathos, sometimes emotionally charged, always riveting. Once again, we learned that resistance can take many forms. Never looking the same twice in a row, sometimes it arrives through art, language, and shared reflection. April 2025. April was one of those moments when we had to stop and take a breath. Brian Garvey from Strathclyde University brought members of the Munduruku people from the Amazon to stand with us in the Sperrins. They too are fighting gold mining in their territory. Stood in the room listening to their stories, the violence that has been meted out to them time after time, the loss of their drinking water with rampant mercury poisoning, the spread of diseases like malaria, the environmental destruction, and the profound social and cultural disruption made us weep. Like us, they are the last line of protection, different continent, same struggle, our same common concern. That meeting stayed with many of us because when people who live thousands of miles apart recognise each other immediately, you know something deeper is at work. Also in April, we were invited to speak at Dublin City University on defending environmental human rights at home and abroad. May 2025. May was rich in global connections. Through Trócaire organisation, we met river guardians from Colombia, more people defending their rivers at enormous personal risk. We spoke alongside them at two events, one in Moville, Donegal at the Gathering's 20th meeting, and another in Dublin at Antashka. Later that month, a group of staff and students from Minnesota University visited us in the Sperrins, listening, asking questions, and learning what a community-led campaign looks like on the ground. June 2025. June was busy. We participated and spoke in a summer solstice event at the Brinks in Belfast. We attended a business and human rights conference at Queen's University Belfast, and we were present at a debate on mineral prospecting licences in Stormont, keeping the issue firmly where it belongs in public and political view. July 2025. July marked a major milestone. On the 21st of July, we gathered at Auncregan to mark 10 years of protecting the Sperrins, 10 years of community action, 10 years of persistence, 10 years of saying no to toxic mining. Our keynote speaker was Mary Lawler, UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders, someone who has constantly recognised the legitimacy and importance of environmental defenders here and around the world. And you can listen to Mary in our podcast number 7, Human Rights in the Hills, Mary Lawler on Defending the Defenders, Season 1. It was both a celebration and a recommitment to who we be in the world, a stand for the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the soil that grows our food. August 2025. August was a turning point. 4 members of Save Our Sperrins submitted an application for leave to take a judicial review against the Department of Economy's decision to grant 7 mineral prospecting licenses to mining companies, including Dalradian Gold. This was a serious legal step, taken carefully, collectively, and with determination. Later in August, Sliella organised a family fun day at the GPO, and we were glad to be part of it, a reminder that community, joy and resistance all belong together. September 2025. In September, we were invited to speak at the Darcy McGee Summer School in Carlingford, again placing the Sperrins within a wider historic and political conversation. This was followed up by Emily McFarlane's exhibition on the Pollen Row Burn in Derry, a powerful place-based exploration of water, land and intrinsic memory of the Sperrins. October 2025. October brought one of the most significant moments of the year. Just days before our judicial review application was due to be heard in the High Court in Belfast, Dalradian Gold and other companies relinquished all 7 mineral prospecting licenses. The Department for the Economy agreed to repay our lodging fee, and pro bono legal costs were split between the Law Society and the Bar Library. It was a clear outcome and not a coincidence. October also saw us speaking on panels at Queen's University Belfast with a delegation from Guatemala, again facilitated through Trócaire. Save Our Sperrins then went down to Dublin, invited to an international symposium, this time in UCD, about land property and spatial injustice. November 2025. In November, we were honoured to have a square included in the Project Dandelion quilt, which Mary Robinson brought to the COP30 in Brazil. We attended the quilt launch at the Mary Robinson Centre in Ballina, County Mayo. It was lovely meeting others from across Ireland who care deeply about the legacy we are leaving for future generations. The quilt itself is a powerful symbol of collective care, resistance and hope, stitched together from many places. December 2025. Finally December. 16 of us travelled to London to bring a clear message: no toxic gold mining, directly to where financial and political power gathers. The message was delivered to Mines and Money Conference, the Crown Estate, King Charles, the Prime Minister, Orion Mine Finance, the US Embassy and Westminster. This is our second visit across the water to remind the powers that be that we are here to stay, we are not going away, and will not tolerate colonial-style capitalism in our community. So that was 2025, a year of challenge, global connection, creativity and courage, a year when community action met legal clarity, a year when local voices from the Sperrins were heard far beyond these hills. Before we finish, we want to take a moment to speak about the podcast itself, because it has become part of the story too. We launched the Save Our Sperrins podcast in January 2025 with an introductory episode, and then there was a long pause. Not because the intention wasn't there, but because the work on the ground in relation to the public inquiry was intense, and we were careful not to take on more than we could realistically carry. It wasn't until July that the podcast properly got going, settling into a weekly rhythm. And once it did, it quickly became clear that this wasn't just another communication tool. It too was very much part of the campaign itself. Telling our story matters. Podcast has become part of the tapestry of Save Our Sperrins, a place for ongoing updates, for explaining what's happening and why, and for making complex issues accessible. But it's also becoming an archive, a living record of what this community has faced, how we have responded, and what we've learned along the way. That is why we started it. One of the biggest lessons this year has been the importance of telling our own story in our own words, rather than having it interpreted, reduced, or misrepresented elsewhere. Behind the scenes, there were practical decisions too. One of the biggest was to whether to include video alongside the podcast. We chose not to, because doing so would have doubled the workload at a time when our energy needs to stay focused on the work itself. Keeping it audio only has allowed the podcast to be consistent, sustainable and grounded, and to keep showing up week after week. What has surprised us is how quickly it has begun reaching people far beyond the Sperrins, particularly communities under pressure from mining and extraction elsewhere. We are hearing from listeners who recognise their own situation in ours, and who are using these conversations to inform and strengthen their own campaigns. Looking ahead, our vision for Season 2 is to deepen that work, to continue amplifying local voices, to bring international perspectives, to explore the wide systems driving extraction, and to keep building solidarity across places and movements. To do that well, we're going to pause the podcast for the month of January 2026. That pause is intentional, a chance to reflect, prepare, and lay strong foundations for what comes next. Season 2 will begin on the first Saturday in February, with episodes released weekly at 8 p.m. So, as the year turns, we carry all of this forward: the work on the ground, the relationships we've built, and the stories we are telling. Thank you to everyone who has stood with us, listened, shared, contributed, and stayed engaged. We'll see you in the year ahead, and back here in February, for the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the soil that supports us we hold the line. You've been listening to the Save Our Sperrins podcast, Voices from the Frontline. Thank you for joining us today. All the links you'll need, from campaign updates to our social media pages, as well as links shared by today's guests and resources mentioned in the conversation, are available in the show notes. Please take a moment to share this podcast with friends, neighbours, or anyone who cares about protecting our land and communities. And don't forget to hit the follow button on your podcast platform. It really helps the algorithm spread these voices further. Together, our voices are stronger. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep standing with the land, the water, the air, and the people who protect them.